Broncos had their season-ending press conference today where George Paton and Sean Payton had some big news on many different fronts about the Broncos season they just had and about moving forward. We're going to touch on the biggest things that you need to know, including Sean Payton's decision to go for it on fourth down instead of kick the field goal. Also, Bo Nix's timeline for his injury. Then both George and Sean talked about the need to improve the running game and the pass game with their receivers. And then you want to stay tuned to the very end where we have some coaching updates when Sean had a awesome quote. Before we dive in, hit us with a thumbs up, subscribe to this channel. It helps us a lot. We are here throughout all of the offseason and of course the season, giving you the latest Broncos news. And before we dive into what's to come, let's start with Sean Payton's decision to go for it on fourth and down with 9:58 left in the second quarter. Sean talked about this at the end of the game, but he really got in detail 48 hours after, deciding to forego a field goal and go for it, which the Broncos ultimately did not get. Today, Sean said, "I don't know which was the greatest regret, the decision to go for it or the play call." And then after talking through it, Sean got to which one was the greatest regret for him. He said, "The one that irks me the most is the play call more than the decision." We heard from Sean after the game say that he had a run picked out, then called a timeout, then changed to a pass. It's pretty clear that Sean wanted to stick with the run in that situation. In hindsight, 2020, of course you'd want to stick with the run because the pass did not work. Of course, the Broncos forewent a field goal there, and they end up losing the game by 3 points. That is going to be one that sticks with Sean for a long time. He says, quote, "Those are the moments you know you wish you had back." So I know Broncos Country's thinking about that one a lot. I can guarantee Sean's thinking about it even more. And his message to the team after losing a big game like this was, you can't be discouraged. You have to let these moments motivate you and build off of them for the years to come. You can't be discouraged by this loss. All right, Bo Nix, who did not play in the AFC Championship game, we got a little bit more detail about what his recovery and return to the football field is going to be like. Bo is doing well, according to Sean Payton, and he's actually in the building today. Sean made a joke that Bo was in a different part of the building than he ever is. Right now, he's using a wheelie because his foot has to be up, and he said it just seemed like Bo was fidgety and trying to get laps in. So Bo is going to attack this rehab strong, according to Sean, and he's doing everything that he can to get back on the field when he can. A very interesting thing that Sean Payton said when the surgeon was doing the surgery on Bo, they found out that it was a matter of when this issue was going to happen, not if. So this was going to happen at some point, and the Broncos just realized that obviously it happened in the divisional round, but it was going to happen at some point to Bo. So that's an interesting thing. Just keep in mind, moving forward, Sean Payton didn't really seem concerned that this was going to be something that continued to happen. He wasn't worried, even though that this is the third time Bo Nix has had surgery on his ankle. When George Paton was talking about Bo Nix returning, he pointed to May as a time when he could potentially be back. He did not make that a hard deadline. He didn't make it a soft deadline. He mentioned May. And so that would mean Bo would miss the beginning of the offseason training program, but could be back potentially right when OTAs start. This does not seem like it's going to be something that impacts him when training camp comes around at the end of July. So that is good news. And then Sean, while he didn't get into specifics on other injuries, was optimistic on all of the Broncos' long-term injuries. Doesn't sound like any players that got injured this past year are going to be impacted by the time training camp comes around. So that's good news for the 2026 season. George Paton talked about Bo. This is the first time we've talked to George in many months, so we got his feelings on Bo Nix. And let me just tell you, if you thought you're a big fan of Bo, George is an even bigger fan of Bo Nix. He said you evaluate quarterbacks based on wins, and no quarterback has more wins than Bo Nix in the first 2 years of his career, and George is right. Bo Nix has the most wins of any quarterback in the first 2 years, and that is a huge part of the evaluation, according to George. And George also said, when we got to 2 minutes left and we were down or tied, we knew we were going to win because of Bo Nix. He's just a winner. And then he also said that Bo's got that it factor, and of course that's on the field and off the field with Bo's leadership. So the Broncos have all the confidence in the world in Bo, and the good news is it does not seem like this injury is going to linger into next year. The next thing that we learned about both the run game and the pass game for the Broncos, George Paton and Sean Payton touched on today. And let's start start with the run game because I thought this was very interesting. Both George and Sean had some interesting comments on this. Improving the run game will be one of the key things we do this offseason. That's what they said. They also said, Sean said, it's going to be an important study and they'll have urgency to the run game. And the Broncos had J.K. Dobbins. They had one of the best run games in the NFL just a week before J.K. was injured. He was the third leading rusher in the NFL, only behind James Cook, who ended up leading the NFL in rushing, and Jonathan Taylor, who's in the MVP conversation at that point. He got hurt in Week 10. He did not come back the rest of the season, and the Broncos' run game was very sporadic from there on out. Both George and Sean acknowledged that losing J.K. was significant loss to the run game. And so what's going to be interesting is, do they bring J.K. back in order to just get that boost to the run game? Do they go another direction? They said they're going to look at that. In fact, Sean Payton walked into Zac Stevens, the offensive line run game coordinator's office today, and that's what he said. We need to improve the run game. We want to look at everything. What they also said was, we want to run it, what Sean also said was, we want to run it under center and control the game, and we haven't been able to do that as much as I like. So Sean wants to run the ball. He just doesn't feel like the Broncos did it as well as they could have. So that's something to follow, how the Broncos attack the run game this year. Now, with the pass game, this one was about the receivers catching the ball. After the game on Sunday, Sean Payton said we had too many drops, and then said we had too many drops throughout this entire season. So he and George were asked about that today, and Sean said there were too many drops this year. Broncos top the league in terms of drops that they had, so Sean Payton's absolutely right. And then Sean Payton actually pointed to a proper catching technique. He said your thumbs have to be together when you catch the ball unless the ball is below your waist. To me, that really sent a message to the Broncos wide receiver coach about maybe the technique not being right, because Sean wasn't talking about one person. He was talking about all of the receivers and pass catchers on the Broncos. He wants your thumbs to be touching. That's his message to the receivers and maybe even the receiver coach. That's something to keep in mind right there. And then the Broncos, George and Sean, both said they like who they drafted in terms of the young talent in their receiver room. Not necessarily looking to overhaul that position, but maybe the technique needs to get better. And George also said he does not regret not making a trade over this past year for a receiver. He said receivers is not what held the Broncos back. A couple more things to get to. Make sure to hit a thumbs up, subscribe to this channel, like it. We really appreciate it. Turn on alerts. We're here all year long breaking down Broncos and Colorado sports coverage. Speaking of young players, George Paton talked about the rookie class and had a few very interesting comments. The one that stood out the most to me was when he talked about Q Robinson, the Broncos rookie edge rusher out of Alabama. George said, quote, he may have the most upside in our draft class. And remember, Q Robinson was a day 3 pick for the Broncos. The Broncos had a first round pick, and George believes that Q might have the most upside among this entire rookie class. And you saw it on Sunday. Q Robinson had a sack on Drake May in the AFC Championship game. This is someone that yesterday Jonathan Cooper said he's phenomenal talent and is going to be great in this league. So do not lose sight of number 51, Q Robinson. Also, he talked about Jahdae Barron. Jahdae Barron played a career-low 5 snaps in the AFC Championship game, and George Paton does not seem disappointed with his rookie season. Said that he made his mark as a rookie when he was out there playing nickel, dime, and a little bit of outside cornerback, that the Broncos saw the traits that they drafted him for. So he does not seem disappointed. He did say it's kind of unfortunate for him that he was drafted in arguably the deepest cornerback room in the NFL. So that's something to keep your eye on. Broncos are not out on Jahdae Barron. Okay, 2 more things. Broncos are going to be aggressive this offseason. George Paton really pointed to that. The Broncos start over. Once the season's over, they start over. They evaluate their roster from scratch, compare it to other teams in the NFL, see what they need. Last year is not a building block. They start over in this process, and George said, we'll be aggressive in filling the needs that we identify, and we're always going to push. George Paton was asked about, now that Bo's on a rookie contract still, do you push even more? And George made it clear, no, we're always pushing regardless. The Broncos just freed up $35 million in dead cap with Russell Wilson's contract now off their books. That's going to help them. Both Sean and George pointed to that. They have flexibility in the draft and free agency because of the number of picks they have and the money that they have. They're in top 12 in terms of free agent money that they will have available this year. And George believed players players want to play for the Broncos in Denver because of, one, the ownership, two, the Broncos have a quarterback in Bo Nix, and then also the fan base, and living in Denver is a great spot. All right, final update for you. Once again, hit us with a thumbs up, subscribe to this channel. We really appreciate it. I really appreciate it as well. And the final update, coaching update for the Broncos. The Broncos have not made any changes to their staff right now. They're going to evaluate that over the next week or two, so stay tuned if any moves happen there. But the Broncos might lose a coach or two. Vance Joseph, it does not look like he is going to be leaving the Broncos. That's not official yet, but that's what I'm hearing. It looks like he's going to stay with the Broncos. However, Webb is having a second interview with the Raiders right now, and he could very well be on his way to the Las Vegas Raiders, especially with Joe Brady taking the Bills job earlier on Tuesday. And then Sean was asked, well, what's it going to be like if Webb goes to an inter-division rival and is coaching that team? And Sean had a fantastic line. He said, it would be a pain in the ass for him. I absolutely love it. That's Sean Payton's competitive spirit. We're not done here. The Broncos are going to have at least one more press conference later this week with owner Greg Penner. And when he talks, there is always news. So make sure to stay tuned, like and subscribe, and we'll see you soon.